Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, upon further review, after watching the offensive film and breaking it down, and if you're on Patreon, I've already uploaded both the first and second half film breakdown of the offense already, and it's already on Patreon. So go ahead and consume that, kind of digest everything that went down, draw your own conclusions, follow along. You'll see some things in there that are very intriguing. There were some really intriguing moments in the game from a film standpoint, especially some of the things the Giants did. Ultimately, one of those things that they did netted them an interception late in the game that sealed it up for them. So we break that down in the film. I break down Antonio Gibson's fumble. I actually uploaded a clip of the very first fumble, the very first offensive snap. Uploaded that to IG, so you can take a look at that. There was a lot of conversation around whether the ball was in the right arm or not. It was. And what's funny is the very next time he touched the football, which was the next offensive snap, one of the next offensive snaps, like maybe 2 or 3 plays later, he switched the ball back to his right arm because that's what he's comfortable carrying. That's what he's comfortable doing. That's where he's comfortable carrying the football, in his right arm. So I think subconsciously he switched it back over. I think he did it consciously. I don't think it was subconsciously done later in the game. I think he said, I tried to do it your way, putting it in the outside arm where it belongs. Now I'm going to put it in the arm I'm comfortable having it in so that I don't fumble. To each its own, whatever benefits you. But I broke down why he fumbled that football. So that's on IG, and that's in the Patreon film breakdown, among other things. One of my biggest takeaways from the game was that offensively, they had a game plan. Scott Turner and company had a game plan. And, you know, I sat here and I bitched about the lack of running the football. Well, that was a part of the game plan. They didn't want to run it against this Giants defense. They're stout inside. They're big. They're physical. They've got a nice rotation in there with Leonard Williams, and Dalvin Tomlinson, and Dexter Lawrence. So they said, you know what? We don't want to run the football against these guys. You know, Blake Martinez is a tackling machine. Where they struggle is stopping the pass. We feel like we can exploit them in the back end. We feel like we can exploit their linebackers. We feel like we can spread them out and throw the football against them. And they were right. We had anything and everything that we wanted in that game. And when we executed, they couldn't stop us. We shot ourselves in the foot. We didn't execute on certain plays. For example, there's a play in there that I break down on film where Leonard Williams splits the double team, and you got Logan Thomas running wide open for potentially a touchdown, and Alex Smith can't get it to him because he's being impacted by the rush of Leonard Williams that forces him to drop his eyes. Now, Smith had enough time to get rid of the football. No excuses, and I talked about it during that film breakdown. He had enough time on that play to get rid of the football. He could have even gotten it to Logan Thomas still. I think it was a little premature to let it go because the corner hadn't cleared. So I understood why he turned that down, but it was no excuse to turn down J.D. McKissick on that play. It shouldn't have resulted in a sack. But nonetheless, when we executed, everything that we wanted was there. When we didn't execute, we made mistakes. And that's the biggest problem right now with this team is there's no happy medium. There's no in between. Either we're playing really well or we're effing up. And there has, and with the good teams, their worst plays aren't catastrophic. It's a punt. It nets a punt. You know, when the Ravens do something wrong, it usually results in a punt. Not all the time. Against the Steelers, Lamar Jackson had a couple of back-breaking interceptions. But for the most part, if they miss a receiver or something goes awry or there's a breakdown in protection, it doesn't result in a disaster. It doesn't result in a fumble or an interception or a sack. It usually results in them finding a way to salvage the play. And I think, again, that's part of what you miss with Kyle Allen. There isn't going to be a bunch of 3rd and 19s and 3rd and 16s because he can escape and keep you out of 3rd and forever. I remember against Dallas, He almost got sacked, but what did he do? He got rid of the football. Instead of it being 3rd and 17 because you just took a sack on 2nd and 9, it's 3rd and 9, and you can convert 3rd and 9. And they did. But in this game, Alex took a sack, and instead of you being in 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 7, now it's 2nd or 3rd and 16. You're dead. So, there were just little things like that, and it's frustrating because they had the game plan for the Giants, the perfect game plan to dissect them. And if you take away the turnovers, and you can't do that. They're a part of the game, and we effed up 5 times. 4 on offense, 1 on specials. You take those mistakes away, though, and a couple of missed opportunities on sacks and, things of that nature, and I don't think this is even a close game. That's the sickening part about watching this film over again, is that Scott Turner had the perfect game plan for this Giants defense. Spread them out and throw it all over the field. They can't stop us. We didn't try to get cute. We didn't try to go play action fake. We didn't try to run it and set. You rarely saw Peyton Barber in this game. Why? Because there was no trying to smash mouth the Giants. There was no, hey, let's run it to set up play action fake. No, we're going to spread you out. We're telling you we're going to throw the football. Stop us if you can. And they couldn't. They couldn't. They had no answer for us. We stopped ourselves. But again, that's why we're 2-6. Because we don't do the things that are necessary to win the games that are there in front of you to win. And I talk about it all the time. There's a thin line, a very fine line between 2-6 and 6-2. And when you do the things you're supposed to do, you're 6-2. Ball bounces your way, you stay relatively healthy, you're 6-2. You don't do the things you're supposed to do, you turn it over, you have untimely penalties. You don't take advantage of opportunities. You don't force any turnovers. You're 2-6. And that's why we sit where we sit. Because we don't know how to take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. But another takeaway from the game, I was so excited, and a lot of you out there were excited about the return of Steven Sims Jr. The man had 1 target in the game. And I talked about this in the film breakdown. 1 target, 1 catch. That's asinine. And at one point, I thought he had no targets, no catches. He didn't get his 1 target and 1 catch until the final drive of the game. The play right before the interception. The final interception of the game. He gets 1 target. He was open all game long. They just didn't throw it to him. But to me, that falls on the offensive coordinator. That falls on the play caller. Because, you may go the first quarter, you may even go the first half without Steven Sims getting a target or a touch. But at some point, you got to be able to say, in the game, while it's happening, you got to be able to say, damn, does Steven have a touch yet? Look at your little notes, go through the game log, and you see that, no, he doesn't have a touch. Okay, well, let me rectify that right now. I can never understand, and I talk about this all the time. When you've got a premier wide receiver, and I'm not talking about Steven Sims here, I'm just talking about in general. Like, if Terry were to go a whole half of football without a target, I'd lose my shit. Because he's Terry McLaurin. I was watching the Cardinals game on Sunday. DeAndre Hopkins didn't have a target the entire first half versus the Dolphins. Now, unless you've got a turnover in a 1-play drive, or you've got a touchdown on a 1-play drive, there's no excuse for that. If you only had 5 snaps in the first half because you had 2 touchdowns on the first play and you had a turnover, okay, maybe I can understand why DeAndre Hopkins didn't have a touch in the first half. But if you've had 20 snaps in the first half and you've had 4 drives in the first half, 5 drives in the first half, and he doesn't have a target, he doesn't have a touch, that's a problem. And that's on you as a play caller. Because he's too good of a player not to have gotten a sniff by now. And I don't want to hear any excuses about, well, we dialed up these plays and he was open. He just didn't get the ball. That's not where the coverage dictated. No, you force the ball to your best guys. And how you do that is you find ways. Wide receiver screen. Jet sweep. Slant. There are so many ways you can get a guy involved. You're telling me that all of those damn slot screens and those swing screens that we threw to Isaiah Wright in the game, you couldn't get one of those for Terry McLaurin or Steven Sims Jr.? Is that what you're telling me? To me, that's bogus. I like Isaiah Wright just as much as the next man, but I want 15 catching that slot screen, that swing screen, not 83. Because the potential for 15 to break it and do something explosive is way greater than 83. So to me, there's no excuse for Steven Sims to play, 35 snaps. And I don't know what his snap count was. It's no excuse for him to play the amount of plays. And he was out there a ton. And to only get one target. And he was open, as I mentioned. He was open. And I'll break that down in the film. But if you're Scott Turner, that's inexcusable on your part. I'm putting the onus on you as the play caller to get your playmakers involved early and often. And you didn't do that with Steven Sims. That can't happen. We don't have enough playmakers to not get 15 involved. To me, that it's just simple. More 21 personnel is what I would advise and recommend. We do our best work. We get our most explosive plays out of 21 personnel. That showed up again on Sunday. To me, it's obvious that with McKissick and Gibson on the field, you put yourself in a position to have dynamic plays happen. You want as many dynamic players on the field at once, and McKissick and Gibson are two of your most dynamic players. They need to be on the field, and at the same time, if at all possible. So, a lot of offensive takeaways. A lot of it is broken down on the film. The film study was really exceptional this week because there were a lot of things that were there in the film, and there were, and just like we've seen in past weeks with Dwayne and Kyle Allen, there are a lot of plays left out on the field offensively. A lot of meat left on the bone. This was the way this game was called, and the way the Giants were playing defense. This should have been a 30-point game for the Washington offense. We should have scored 30 plus in this game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You look at the way the Giants were played on the defensive side of football, and you look at all the opportunities that were in front of us in this game. To only come away with 20 points is special. It's really special on the part of our offense. It's disheartening. It's disappointing. And it's losing football. Because 20 generally doesn't win you many games in this league. And I've stated that many a times. You score 20, you're asking to lose. You want to win in this league, score 27. Score 30. 27 will win you most games in this league. Go look at the final scores in a lot of these games. 27 points will win you most games in this league. We've hit 27 or more once. That was week 1, and it was 27. You can't keep scoring 20 and expecting the defense, who continues to get off to slow starts, to hold the opposition to under 20 so that you can win. You have to score more points. We had ample opportunities in this game when you watch the film, and we threw them away. And we didn't take advantage, and we left points out on the field. And when you do that in this league on a weekly basis, as we often do, you get beat. And we got beat again. The film tells the story. That's pretty much what I can say. And if you're not watching on Patreon, down in the description is a link to Patreon. Become a patron and get this film breakdown. We'll be breaking down these college rookies here in a little bit too, because honestly, at this point, that's where we are. Now, I will say this. I'll say this. I'll leave you with this, and we'll move on. If Alex Smith can play like he did in the second half of this game, moving forward, he'll give us a chance to win every week. We'll have a shot. We'll have a shot. He wasn't terrible in this game. He wasn't good enough, but he wasn't terrible. You can see him gaining confidence the more he plays. that was refreshing to see. You know, we went from a guy that was panicking and scared, and his heart was racing and his mind was racing in his first game back, which you can understand, to a guy that started to have everything slow back down for him. Now, he's still rushing in certain instances, and when there's pressure, he panics, period. However, when there's time and he's able to survey the field, for the most part, he's still Alex Smith at his core. And that means he's going to be conservative more times than not. He's still Alex Smith. There's no changing your stripes. He's old. He's an old man. At this point, there's no changing who he is. That's why the mistakes that were made on Sunday were so disheartening, because you're too old for that shit, Alex. You're 37 years old. You're 36, 37 years old. You're too old for that shit, man. You got to be better than that. You out here leading a bunch of youngins, and you out here making critical mistakes. Leave that for the young boys. Antonio Gibson fumbled. Leave that to him. He's a young boy. Isaiah Wright fumbled. Leave that to him. He's a young boy. The penalties, leave that to the young boys. You don't partake in any of that stuff. You too old for that shit. Leave the mistakes to the youngins. You can't throw 3 interceptions. Not you. Leave that to Dwayne or Kyle Allen. Not you. But I digress. Let's move on to in other news. Not much here on the Washington football front, as Tuesdays usually quick show, because not a lot is going on at Redskins Park, or excuse me, Washington Park. And so not much to report. There have been a few roster tweaks that I'll mention quickly before we get out of here. One, Steven Sims has been promoted back to receiver number 2 on the depth chart, and he is backed up behind, and you know, it's really the slot position that we're talking about here. He's been promoted back to the 3rd, receiver position, the slot, and Isaiah Wright actually held that position last week. You know, that they had Isaiah Wright still listed on their depth chart, official depth chart, as the starting slot receiver. Sims is now back to starting slot receiver. Obviously, he wasn't activated from IR, so that was the reason that he wasn't officially put as the starter. Now, because he's back off of IR officially, he's back as your starting slot receiver. But he took starting slot receiver reps in the game anyway. But backing him up is Isaiah Wright and Jeff Badette. Let me say something about Jeff Badette. And I noted this in the film, and I talked about this during the film breakdown, so I don't want to get into too much of this, but I just want to say this. In crucial moments in the game, in the 4th quarter, late in the ball game, Jeff Badette is getting meaningful snaps. Period. So there were a few more roster moves. Washington designated their 4 guys that they want to save on their practice squad, that they want to make them unavailable to be poached. None of the names are really that earth-shattering, but there's a new name on that list. Quarterback Steven Montez showed up. For good reason. Obviously, you got only 2 healthy quarterbacks now, so it is imperative that you keep the guy that's been here the entire time, and Steven Montez, viable in case something else were to happen at the quarterback position. So that was the name that jumped out. That was the noticeable name that I looked and said, okay. And another name there, Kare Vedvik, the place kicker that we've been holding on to for basically the entire season. He's also on that list. So 2 interesting names. Again, nothing from Dustin Hopkins this week to suggest that, you need to do anything. I just thought I'd bring that up because Steven Montez, for the first time, showed up on that list, and I think that's imperative of where it's indicative of where we are as a football team with the injuries to the quarterback position, and that we're literally one injury away from Dwayne being back in and Steven Montez potentially being activated as your backup quarterback. That's where we are right now at the quarterback position. They're talking internally about potentially bringing a veteran in. I wouldn't be shocked if they did, but right now, as it stands, they're going to roll with Alex. That was another roster move that was made. They officially made Alex Smith the starter, made Dwayne Haskins the backup, and now Steven Montez is third in the pecking order. They still have Kyle Allen listed as the third quarterback. Remember, Ron at his presser yesterday said that Allen was not out for the season quite yet. They had not ruled him out for the season. Everybody else is reporting he's out for the season. He's done for the season. Okay, guys, let me just explain that to you. He broke his ankle. He's not coming back in enough time to help this team this season. So unless something miraculous happens, and we get in the playoffs, at that point you would ride with the guy that got you there. So you've seen the last of Kyle Allen for this season. I think, though, what's going to be interesting is he was on the last year of his deal. He's a restricted free agent next year. Do you bring him back? I think the answer is a resounding yes. So we'll see what they decide to do there, but that's essentially it. Not much more to talk about. The offense was intriguing. We'll break down the defensive film tomorrow. We'll be live tomorrow night. We'll talk about a bevy of topics. We'll hear from a bunch of guys tomorrow, including Alex Smith and offensive coordinator Scott Turner. And I think we'll find that he is going to tell us that the game plan was to attack the Giants throwing the football. We only ran it 9 times, and it's not like the Giants jumped on top of us 20-3 within the first, 16 minutes of the game. I mean, they weren't up 20-3 until the late stages of the first half. I mean, the game was 10-0, and then it was 10-3. So we were in the game, and we could have run it if we wanted to. The game plan was apparent. Let's throw the football against the Giants. We don't think they can stop us. Spread them out, and we'll pick our guy that we want to get the football to. And essentially pick your poison. And we had options all day long, all day strong. And again, when we executed, the Giants had zero answer. None. We racked up more total yards than they did. We racked up more first downs than they did. We were more dynamic on offense than they were. The problem was we turned it over 5 times, and they turned it over no times. The great equalizer is what I call turnovers. They had the great equalizer on their side. We did not. And that's been a common theme this season. We've lost the turnover battle, and now I believe 6 of the 8 games we've played this season, we lost the turnover battle. I believe that's the case. We didn't lose it in week 1 versus Philadelphia, and we didn't lose it in week 7 versus Dallas. I think in every other week we've lost the turnover battle this season or been even. I'm trying to think. We lost it against Arizona. We lost it against Cleveland. We lost it against the Rams. I think we lost it against the Rams. I don't remember us turning it over against the Rams. I don't think we lost it against the Ravens either. We got 2 picks in that game, but the last one was a gimme pick at the end versus Bob Griffin. So that really doesn't count, but we didn't lose it against the Ravens. We only turned it over once in that game. But we did have a missed field goal that flipped field position. That's nor here nor there. The bottom line is we're not creating enough turnovers. I've been crying about that all season long. We'll talk more about that tomorrow when we talk about the defense, however. But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I thank you guys for joining me. Look forward to chopping it up with you tomorrow live. And we'll start talking and looking forward to the Lions game. And we'll also start talking about what are some of the biggest needs for this team moving forward. I think that'll be one of the topics of discussion as we jump into the live stream tomorrow night, as we start to kind of shift our focus from trying to win this division to focusing in on the future. What are some of the positions of need? And obviously, quarterback's going to top the list, but after you get past quarterback, what are some of the bigger needs that this team needs? I think that's a conversation that we need to start having and start turning our attention to some of these young guys that'll be in the draft, and what draft position do we have, and where will we end up, and what will we have available to us as we get closer to the draft. I think we need all of our draft picks. I'm not a huge proponent of trading any of the draft picks to move up in the draft, so you take the best guy available to you where you are. Obviously, if you find a quarterback that you're smitten with and you really desperately feel like you need to get your hands on him, then you do what you have to do to get your guy. Similar to the way the Chiefs did it with Mahomes and the Texans did it with Watson. and what we've seen other teams in this league do when they see a guy that they've identified as the guy, you go and get him. You know, if they find a guy like that in college that they feel like is the future at the quarterback position, you go and you get him. But there are other positions on this team that need to be upgraded as well. And I think it's time to start having a discussion about that. And so I think among other topics, we'll talk about that and a bevy of other things tomorrow night live on Washington Football Nightly. So I'm your man, Louie T. I'm about to sign off and get out of here. Before I do, though, I want to make sure that you guys like this video. Okay, hit that thumb button, that like button, that thumbs up before you go. Also, make sure you subscribe to the LouieTeeNetwork. Most of you have, but on the off chance that you haven't, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also, remember, if you're not a part of the Mob Squad, then you're not really in the game. All right, the link is down in the description below where you can become a member of the Mob Squad community. It's a community of massive Washington football fans, and we just talk all things Washington football. We watch the games together. We chat about it. We talk about some news items regarding this team. We talk about everything under the sun that has to do with Washington football. So would love to have you. If you're not a part of the family and not a part of the community, hit that link down below and become a member of the Mob Squad. MOBB, stand up. We in the building, as always. I appreciate you guys. And also, merch is available. Got on a LTN hat on my head right now. I've showed you black camo in the dad hats. I've got beanies in black and gray. We got hoodies in gray and black as well. Shirts in white, black, and gray. You name it, it's on the website, down in the description, theprintchamps.com/LouieT. Again, down in the description, you'll find that. Go ahead and support the kid and get you some dope LTN merch. With that being said, I'm officially going to glide to the side now. I'm your man, Louie T, and this has been Washington Football Nightly. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.